A story of power, tragedy, bizarre coincidences, and shocking endings. This is how every US president met their final moment. Early presidents and primitive medicine. And right from the very beginning, things were already brutal. George Washington, the first president, didn't go out in glory. He went out struggling to breathe. After riding in freezing weather, he developed a severe throat infection, likely epiglottitis. Today, that's treatable. Back then, doctors thought draining blood would help. They removed nearly 80 ounces. Imagine that. Instead of healing him, it pushed him closer to death. And yet, even then, Washington stayed calm. His final words, "'Tis well," feel almost unreal. No panic, just acceptance. Would you be that composed? But here's where history takes a wild turn. John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, former friends turned rivals, both died on July 4th, 1826, exactly 50 years after the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson, weak and fading, kept asking if it was the 4th yet, almost like he was waiting for it. When the day finally came, he let go. Meanwhile, Adams, miles away, whispered, "Thomas Jefferson survives," not knowing Jefferson had already passed. That coincidence? It doesn't even feel real. And then, it almost happened again. James Madison came close to dying on July 4th too, but missed it by days. You can almost feel the tension there, like history was lining something up but didn't quite land it. But James Monroe? He completed it. Another president dying on Independence Day. His final words weren't about politics or legacy. They were about friendship, missing Madison, missing connection. And honestly, that's what stands out here. Not power, not titles, just people at the end, thinking about each other. Strange how the earliest leaders of a nation were taken by both crude medicine and eerie timing. Public service deaths and natural causes. And then things shift, but not in the way you'd expect. John Quincy Adams didn't fade away quietly. He collapsed right in Congress, still serving years after being president. That's wild when you think about it. Most people retire. He kept going until his body literally gave out. His last words? Calm, accepting, almost like he knew his time had come right there. But this next part feels different. Andrew Jackson, one of the toughest, most aggressive presidents, duels, fights, near assassination, didn't go out like a warrior. Tuberculosis, heart failure, and drops slowly wore him down. And in the end, his final words weren't about strength. They were soft, telling his family not to cry, that they'd meet again. And then Martin Van Buren, quiet, almost forgotten in comparison. He passed peacefully, expressing faith in God. It's strange, isn't it? The strongest public figures, ending in the most human, quiet ways. Short presidencies and mysterious illnesses. But wait, this next part gets frustrating. William Henry Harrison barely even got started, just 31 days as president. People always say he died from pneumonia after giving a long speech in the cold, but that's probably not true. The real cause? Contaminated water at the White House. Think about that. The most powerful office in the country, and the water wasn't even safe. It makes you wonder how many things back then were just wrong. Then comes John Tyler, and his story is complicated. When he died, the country didn't even officially mourn him. That says everything. Politics followed him, even into death. And then James K. Polk. This one hits differently. After leaving office, he went on a tour, probably exhausted, probably worn down, and caught cholera. Within months, he was gone. But his final words? Not about regret, not about power, just love, telling his wife he loved her forever. And honestly, that contrast is hard to ignore. Short lives, unlucky timing, and a system that just wasn't ready to protect its own leaders. Strange and controversial deaths. And here's where things get weird. Zachary Taylor's death almost sounds fake. Cherries and milk? Seriously? But that's what happened. On a hot day, he tried to cool off with raw cherries and milk, both likely contaminated. Within days, he was dead from severe illness. Of course, people suspected poisoning. A sitting president dying like that? It raised questions, but investigations later found nothing. Still, it feels suspicious, doesn't it? Then you have Millard Fillmore, whose final moment was oddly normal. He tasted soup and said it was palatable. That's it. No grand speech, just food. And then everything turns dark again. Franklin Pierce's story is just tragic. He lost his son in a horrific accident right before taking office. That kind of grief doesn't go away. It followed him, pushed him into alcoholism, and eventually destroyed his body. Liver failure took him, and the worst part? He died alone. No recorded last words, nothing. And that silence might be louder than anything else on this list. Pre-Civil War to Civil War tragedy. And just when things feel heavy, history drops something even bigger. James Buchanan is often remembered as a failed leader. The country was heading straight towards civil war, and he couldn't stop it. When he died, it wasn't dramatic, just illness. But his legacy, that's where the weight sits. And then comes Abraham Lincoln. This part, you already know, but it still hits. Sitting in Ford's Theater, watching a play, relaxed for once after the war, and then a single moment changes everything. Shot in the head, no heroic speech, no warning. Just seconds before, he was reassuring his wife, casually talking about what others might think of them holding hands. That's what makes it feel real. Not a president, just a person in a normal moment, gone instantly. And you can almost feel the shift in the country after that, from leadership struggles to outright tragedy. Post-war presidents and medical failures. But here's where it gets frustrating again, because some of these deaths didn't have to happen. Andrew Johnson suffered strokes, but stayed stubborn till the end, refusing help. Then Ulysses S. Grant, war hero, respected leader, lost everything financially before being diagnosed with throat cancer. And instead of resting, he pushed himself to write his memoirs so his family wouldn't struggle. His final word? Water. Just that. Pure exhaustion. And then comes one of the worst cases. James Garfield didn't die from the bullet that hit him. He died because doctors kept probing the wound with unsterilized tools. Infection took him over weeks. Imagine surviving the attack, only to be killed by treatment. And Chester Arthur followed, quietly passing from kidney disease. It really makes you think. How much damage did bad medicine actually cause back then? Late 1800s, leaders and assassination return. And just when it felt like things were calming down, violence came back. Grover Cleveland's ending was simple but heavy. I've tried so hard to do it right. That line sticks. No excuses, just reflection. Then Benjamin Harrison, taken out by pneumonia, struggling to breathe even with decent medical care for the time. It shows how fragile life still was. But then, everything escalates again. William McKinley's assassination feels chilling. He was just greeting people, shaking hands, being approachable, and someone steps forward, hiding a gun under a cloth, and shoots him. At first, it didn't seem fatal. Doctors couldn't even find the bullet, but that's where it went wrong. Infection set in. Gangrene followed. Days later, he was gone. His final words? calm, accepting, speaking to his wife about God's will, and after that, the country had enough. That's when the Secret Service truly stepped in to protect presidents full-time. 20th century presidents and changing times. And now, the game starts to change. Theodore Roosevelt might be one of the toughest humans ever, shot in the chest, and still delivers a full speech. Who does that? But years later, his body finally gave in. A blood clot, likely worsened by everything he pushed through. Even the strongest can't outrun time. Then William Taft, whose weight and health slowly drained his heart. No dramatic ending, just years catching up with him. Woodrow Wilson's decline feels tough to watch. A stroke left him partially paralyzed, and he knew it. His final words? Comparing himself to a broken machine. And then Warren Harding, stress, scandals, pressure, it all piled up. His heart gave out while his wife was reading to him. Calvin Coolidge, quiet till the end. And Herbert Hoover lived long, but faded without even being able to leave last words. Different era, but still human endings. Modern era and high-profile deaths. And this is where it starts to feel closer to our time, and somehow even more intense. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 4-term president, collapsed from a stroke while sitting for a portrait. After everything he carried, that's how it ended. Harry Truman didn't even get the last words. A coma took that away. And Eisenhower? He was ready. Straight up said it. He wanted to go. Then comes John F. Kennedy. This moment changed everything. Riding through Dallas, smiling, waving, and within seconds, it's over. Shot in broad daylight. No time to react, no final speech, just a simple reply moments before, "No, you certainly can't." And from there, it keeps hitting. Lyndon B. Johnson, heart attack. Nixon, shouting for help. Gerald Ford, long life. Jimmy Carter, 100 years. Reagan fading through Alzheimer's. Bush Sr. saying, "I love you." And that's the thing. Even at the highest level, these endings feel deeply, painfully human. Even presidents aren't immune to fate. These stories reveal how power, tragedy, and chance shape every ending. So, what's your take? Drop it in the comments. And if this surprised you, there's more coming next.